Welcome to Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore life's ups and downs through the lens of a mainstream drunk's design for living. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of life, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the power of giving back. Whether you're sober curious, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for real talk, raw emotion, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back in life's extraordinary journey.
Fall, rise, give, be real, be your true self, be inspired. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're doing. That's how we're enjoying ourselves. Kumar and I are the hosts of the show, and someday we hope to have you on the show as well, because pretty soon we're going to start having guests, aren't we, Kumar?
Yeah, we are. I think we've got one scheduled for June, and we're going to start having guests. We're going to have real people. We're going to have somewhat famous people, anybody who has a great story to share around the topics that we care about, which is really about being your true self, how to be real, how to understand that, hey, it's okay to fail, it's okay to fall, it's okay to rise, and how to get inspiration, how to move through the principles of life, really, and then how to give back. How are people giving back? Small service, things in a meeting that you're hosting, or you're sharing your thoughts, to running a nonprofit, or starting to think about a nonprofit, or giving to a charity. Whatever is on your heart, how are you giving back? So all those themes of falling, how to rise, and how to give back.
Let's start off. Let's just kind of revisit, if you will, why we started doing this podcast. So what made you contact me in order to, start doing something here?
That's a great point. It's been on my ear. It's been a project of a lifetime, as I mentioned. I wanted to help others by writing a book and by having a message. And I have been talking about living a soulful life, a life that's about mind, body, and spirit. I've been thinking about it for about 19 years. And then I never really felt like I had the message or the experience to be ready for it. And then about 6 months ago, and I'm totally okay with it. When I stopped drinking alcohol, I started getting some clarity. I started intensifying my meditation. I've been doing meditation for over 20 years as well. And basically got into a regimen of praying and meditating 2 to 3 times a day. And I started looking for a higher purpose. And as I was going through the meditation, or the chakra meditation, as I call it, I started to get a vision of helping people live in authentic alignment with their purpose. And so from that, I started thinking, how can I help people? And so I thought about writing a book, and then I felt like my message is pretty solid now. It applies to the principles of the 12 steps of the AA program. It applies to universal principles of success. It applies to the 7 chakra principles. And so combining that together for a real mainstream person who wants to change their life, who wants to not live a life of desperation, but of inspiration. And so I wanted to help people who were essentially living a numb life like I was. And so how I came out of it, how others have come out of it. So I wanted to have a message, and I feel like at the age of 55 now, I have a solid set of footing and experiences that I actually know what I'm talking about, and I think others will benefit from that.
We're at show 7 today, right?
Yeah.
We started doing these on Easter Sunday. Today is Mother's Day, and I didn't call my mom yet this morning. Usually I call my mom first thing in the morning on Mother's Day. My mom likes to talk.
Yeah.
And so I was going to give her a call, and I'm like, you know what? I have a podcast I have to do, but moms are super important. I just wanted to say that if you've got your mother, and if you didn't get a chance to give her a call on Mother's Day, give her a call today, or give her a call whenever you're thinking about her, because those time goes by so damn fast that you don't know when the last time you're going to have the last time you're going to be able to talk to somebody or give somebody a hug, or to what I mean, just let them know how important they are in your life.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think my mom likes to talk as well. So I did text her this morning. I tend to text her more than I call her, but I will call her today. I did tell her that. I don't think there's anybody who's going to love you more than your mother. And so it's the ultimate. God probably will love you more than your mother, but I think that's a hard stretch. In real life and down on earth, down in this rational world of physical matter, whatever you want to call it, nobody will love you more than your mother. And I think, yeah, it's a very important thing to be grateful for that, to have them and thank them for their love and energy. And reminded this week, a coworker of mine, her mother-in-law passed away. My mother-in-law passed away last year, and I think it's really important to spend the time that you can with people, to know and appreciate them. And so, um, mothers can be amazing, and they show us how they live with principles and stuff like that. So, they really care, unconditional love as much as they possibly can. They nurture us, they guide us through the best that they can. I think that a lot of people may have resentment towards their childhood or whatever, but people do the best that they can with given the circumstances that they're in. So let's
Hmm.
thank them for that. Let's be loving and let's be kind.
You know, it's funny that you said that moms will love you more than anybody. I agree with that. And here we are both fathers. You know,
Yep.
we both have our children, and I know for a fact that they're, you know, I love my children unconditionally and to the, you know, to the moon and back, as you know, as people do, as people say. But I know that their mother has a different and a stronger love for you know, my kids than I do. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think women as a whole, I think it's been talked about, the yin and the yang. Women tend to be more nurturing, more emotionally caring, more supportive, more feeling oriented. Men tend to be more rational, more problem solving, and more action driven. Not that they both can't be. I think we all have each other. We all have a male characteristic side and a female characteristic side. But I think mothers and women in general tend to be more nurturing, and I think that love shows up in having a child. I mean, the 9 months, and and that's not what we planned on talking about, but it's that ordeal of your body changing and you're giving life to someone, and they have a bigger part in it, I think, and that's probably what shows up in life.
You know, it's kind of funny that we're talking about Mother's Day right now because it's kind of the rebirth of the podcast right now, and the rebirth with a new name and a new, not really a new name, but a new focus. I know that we had started with with a different logo, and a couple days ago you sent me a new one. So I mean, so Mother's Day does kind of tie into this. So let's kind of sidestep into that now and talk about the, you know, about the new focus of the podcast.
Yeah, it's a new focus, it's birthing of a new idea, but it's not really a new idea. It's getting more clarity as you go through and you start to unpeel the onion of your life. You're going to start to unlayer. You'll have things about your relationships that will start to unfold and unravel. You start to have things about your job, your relationships with your kids, your recreational hobbies, your passion, your true destiny, whatever. So as we start to get more clear, I think I am in part of a program on how to get clear and how to have your book um, published to the right audience and the right message. And as part of the program, I was able to get a lot more clarity in the last week or so. I don't think the overall message changes. It's how I organize the thoughts and who I target it towards changes.
Hmm.
And so that's what's happened. And I think the message will just get tighter and tighter. But I think our overall topic of the spiritual principles or the rational principles of the physical world that we live in, that we, it could be Christian principles, it could be AA principles, it could be Hindu principles, but they're all tied in together into this what I call the chakra principles, and then how we live our life through those. I don't think any of that changes. We just get more refined on our message.
Mm. I really do like the be real, the be yourself, and the be inspired. Because I mean, that kind of goes by the things that we've been talking about each and every week leading up to this point.
Yeah, yeah. Being real, I think it's kind of the ground floor. You have to look at yourself in a very objective, your life, your situation, your job, your career, your family, your relationships, your relationship with your money, whatever that is, in a real sense. Where are you today is based on your past actions, past behaviors, past beliefs, and current beliefs may also be holding you there or keeping you there. And oftentimes people may want to change a little bit, but being grounded, and that's the root chakra, that's the root things. It reminds me of thinking about, wanted to explain the whole chakra system again, the principles to everybody. As I've been studying the chakra system for the last 19 years, and like I said, I want to write a book about soul truth, or the soul verite, as I call it in Latin for truth. It really was around. being your true self and how life will take you to certain avenues, certain paths. And so being grounded where you are, accepting things as they are, is the foundation of root chakra. And ultimately, the root cause of our problems resides in that. We get stuck there. The second chakra I want to talk about is the sacral chakra, which is our sexual chakra, if you want to call it that. That's where creativity, that's where motherhood and biology pieces of it get stuck there. But it's about desire. It's all about wanting to create something, wanting to have a bigger desire, wanting something better for ourselves, better for our family, whatever that is. And the third one is really important, hit me hard this week. And again, they're all interconnected. That's why we're talking about them, is the power chakra. That's where we get blocked in real life. We get fears and anxiety that hold us back from our actions. And so we'll talk about a story that happened to me this week in that one. The fourth one is love chakra, the compassion chakra. That's your heart chakra. That's where your energy comes from. Fifth one is basically your throat chakra, and it's your connection, your relationships with others, your communication chakra. The sixth one is your intuition, insights, kind of your mind and how that works in centered format. The seventh one is your crown chakra, and that's where God and your soul and your spiritual universal light will come in, and you want to kind of be centered around a higher purpose or higher power. So they're all interrelated. That's why I talked about them today. Yeah, I had a really interesting week this week, and it reminded me that no matter how good of a person you are, no matter how big of a leap that you've made in your faith and your work and how your thinking process, you might get thrown back a little bit. So if you don't mind, I'd love to talk about what happened to me this week, and then we'll talk about
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think we all go through a rough time. So as mentioned before, I'm a techie. I work as a manager for a company in the tech area, and I had a presentation that I was supposed to give to a bunch of executives last Tuesday afternoon, and then I had worked over the weekend on it. I had spent 2 to 3 hours on Saturday and Sunday each, and I got it all ready, and I shared my presentation with my team. They all aligned to it. And the next day I sent it to a different team, a more of an engineering center team. And they came back and totally disagreed with what I had to say. And all the work I had done was based on their feedback. And they just basically threw me in for a loop. And I was just kind of shocked. And there's nothing for me to do than basically cancel the meeting with the executives. And I felt that was totally out of my control. I felt that wasn't justified. In my old world hat, would have been pissed off. In this case, I was more sad and disappointed than anything else. And on top of it, I reached out to my boss, who didn't support me the way I wanted to be supported on that day in the decision. And he basically ignored me for the whole week. And that threw me in for a loop. And I basically got caught up in this sense of fear and anxiety and all of these things around, oh my God, if this is going to go so bad, this has got delayed, that the project's already in trouble. Am I going to get fired? Am I going to get all sorts of monkey mind stuff started to go in my head? And I realized that fear got a really good hold of me. And I found out that I really had to focus on accepting the things that I could control, accepting the fact that I cannot control the outcomes of the situation. All I could focus on was my actions. My thoughts had also gone away from me. And so the monkey mind part of it was I couldn't even control my thoughts because I was so fear driven. So I got back into meditation. I started thinking about it, and I went down my root chakra system, and I realized, hey, I had a acceptance. I accepted the situation. I didn't get angry. I didn't get frustrated. I got disappointed. Second part of it is I wanted a different outcome. That's the desire, the sacral chakra. And the third one was, now that I didn't get what I wanted, I was in a fear-based third chakra situation. Now my body felt anxiety. I started getting in an argument with my wife that afternoon. I realized things were getting off balance. So again, I meditated that afternoon at about 4 o'clock. It was probably should have done it earlier in the day. And I got all centered. And I started thinking about the topic for the podcast. I'm like, what are we going to talk about this time? And I realized that, hey, accepting just isn't enough. There's a big part of the acceptance piece that is wanting a different outcome. We all want something, and we're not going to get it. Sometimes not getting it could put us into a fear situation and get us down the path. And so it was a tumultuous week, and I realized that my thinking is the biggest problem, and how I think through things and how I really look at and how I get stuck in certain energy centers in my body. And I got stuck at number 3 and number 2 and then number 1. And I was basically bouncing around those 3 all week. And I found some great tools and helped me overcome those. So that's what we're talking about today. Any thoughts or any ideas?
You know, I agree with you. The things that get me down the most are the things that I get in my own head. When I get stuck in my own head, that's when I start going or start spiraling. And a lot of times it just takes stepping back, looking at it, reassessing, and then going forward with something else, and being able to move freely throughout those things. I mean, if something doesn't go right, try to reassess things and then kind of make it, sidestep and then go at it a different way. And eventually it's going to work. And usually it does. I mean, you think about some of the worst things that have happened in your life, and then you think about things that you've done to try to rectify that or try to change it and try to make things better for yourself. And most of the time you come up with the solutions on your own. You step back and you look at it and you think to yourself, you know what, if I did it this way or do it that way, it's going to work. And that's kind of what I took about what you're saying, is that, you just kind of reassess your stuff and just kind of go forward with it again and keep picking at it till you get it.
Yeah, no, agreed. Exactly. And I think the beauty in the message that you said is that you keep going at it. What you don't want the fear to do, what you don't want the blocks in your energy to do, is to hold you back from action, right? Or thinking about it a different way. And so it reminds me of kind of going back into the Serenity Prayer, which is a Christian prayer that is often used in AA and different recovery programs. So what I want to do is kind of dissect that for a couple of minutes. So the Serenity Prayer goes like, God, help me accept the things I cannot change. Give me the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Give me the courage to change the things I can is very fascinating. We forget about that part as part of acceptance, right? Mm-hmm. It's the big part of courage to change the things that I can. And how we find courage is how we look at it is what we want. So I think the biggest tools that I can give people, and the biggest tools that I'm working on myself, is what do I want? And that's going to ultimately go into the sacral chakra and figuring out, what do we want? Why do we want it? And then based on that, we'll run into blocks. We'll run into the third chakra. We'll spend tons of time talking about fear. But what do we want? And then once we don't get what we want, we all have short-term wants. We may not be living in a perfect chakra-inspired life today, but we have certain wants, daily wants, spending time with the family or car breaking down or some things. We'll have to accept that fact. We'll still want something different, but it's in that outcome that you can't control. And there's a Buddhist principles that I love talking about. I think we've talked about it. It's detachment, right? You can want something and be okay with not getting it. And that's where the peace lies. And that's where a level of serenity lies, is that, hey, I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. And that outcome is up to the universe, really. It's up to God, up to the higher powers, up to your boss sometimes, who may be playing the role of God in this case. But the point being is, we can't control the outcomes in life. We can control the actions. So we've got to go back to our thinking process. We've got to go back to our belief process and our values. And then in my world, I love talking about meditation and kind of get yourself centered and calm and loving. And that's how you solve through it.
So I want to share a story with you that happened to me this week. And it was outcome based, I guess. I was mowing my lawn. I have 2 pieces of property. I have a house. I have 2 acres at my house, and I have a cabin, which is 4 miles away, and I have 5 acres there. I was getting my cabin ready for the summer, basically. First mowing of the year. Went to start my mower. My mower started. However, my front tire on my rider was blown out. So I brought it into the shop. We have a shop here in town. Brought it there. Dropped it off, and the guy that fixed it, usually, since it's a small town, I live in a town of 191 people, the guy will usually fix it and then drop it back to my house when he's done, which is great. I mean, it's a service that you're not going to find in Seattle unless you pay through the nose for it. It's a service you're not going to find anywhere else except for a small town where there's very few people. So I dropped the tire off, and I got home, took a shower, took a little nap, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to go pick it up. I never go pick up the tire afterwards. He always just drops it off, and it's just we BS for a little bit, and then he's on his way. For some reason, I went and picked it up. It was at 4:00 on a Thursday afternoon, and I gave him the money, grabbed the tire, walking out the door. FedEx truck drives by and honks. And I'm like, oh, you expecting a package? He goes, no, the FedEx truck pulls over. And it's a guy that I worked with 5 years ago. We used to be in radio together. We both went separate ways. I bartend and podcast now. He's a manager for FedEx. We sat and talked on the side of the road for 15 or 20 minutes. I took a picture of the two of us, throw it up on Facebook, and I had like 300 people, either comment or like, or maybe not 300, but I had quite a few people comment, like, and talk about it. And I think to myself, that's one of those things where you're not expecting, what are the chances of this guy driving by the highway at the moment that I'm standing out there? I was just thinking about him the other day, and there it is,
Yeah. So it's amazing what happens when you follow your gut instincts. We talked about intuition, right? We talked about intuition already, and you followed your gut instincts, and it led you to a certain path. And so that's the sixth chakra, the insights that you get to go pick up that tire. And whatever that insight was, it was probably the universe telling you at some level, or a higher power, to go do something, and you followed your gut instincts. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And following that gut instincts got you to reconnect with that guy and having a moment of joy, as I called it, by connecting with him and having a relationship that was important to you. And so all of these things are interrelated. And as I talked about, for me, the third chakra got in the way. And I worked on fear all week. So the fear for me got in the way of what I wanted to live. I couldn't live in intuition because the fear for me led me to a place of anxiety, of limiting my actions. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about fear this week and the power chakra or the solar chakra. And what I realized was fear is okay. It's unavoidable. You're going to run into situations that you have to accept, and that will have a particular impact in your life. And you may have a monkey mind that'll tell you it's the worst case scenarios. But I wanted to briefly mention this as a tool. So fear oftentimes is a false emotion that appears real. Is something that I had learned way back when. But it's very real to the person who's experiencing it, right? And so it gets in the way of us living what we want to live. So fear is okay. It's unavoidable. What we don't want it to do is let it get in the way of our actions. And how we get over that is focusing on things that we want. So accepting things is okay. Accepting things is not enough to live a life that you want to live. So what you want to live is getting in the second chakra, again, the desire of what is it that you want? Why do you want it? And why do you want it has to be a deep-rooted thing. Otherwise, you won't commit to it. And if you don't commit to it, you're not going to get the outcomes that you wanted. And so I had to reassess and rebalance my energy centers and meditate on all these things. And I had to unblock my fears. And I was able to do that by focusing on things like accepting, focusing on what I wanted, and then really giving myself the grace and the self-love and focusing on and trusting God. I think the only way to get over truly of fears is to say, you know what? I'm going to let the universe or God or higher power take care of this from me. All I'm going to do is worry about the actions that I can take, accept the fact that the outcomes didn't get to where I wanted to be, and I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do, and the outcomes will hopefully take care of themselves.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please check out our website at fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode. And remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.